Hello everyone and welcome back to Inside Artscroll. Today we are privileged to be joined by Reb Eli Stefansky of Artscroll. Thank you, Reb Eli, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Famed Daf Yomi Magachir, among many other accomplishments. So I'd like to get right into it. Your Daf Yomi shiur, which is now world-renowned, recently ran some kind of promotion of some sort, giving out Artscroll Gemaras to get people to join your shiur. And since we're in Artscroll territory here, we'll start off with that. What exactly did your shiur do? And what could you tell us about how your offer of giving people free Gemaras for them to join your shiur compelled people or propelled people or influenced them to join your shiur?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. Thanks for the tour, an amazing facility. Beautiful. There were a bunch of guys from the shiur that wanted to do something to give back and bring more people into learning. They came with the idea to give them an incentive, give them a Gemara. And it was basically a guy by the name of Yossi Klein from Muncie. Nissan Gans helped him out a lot. And a bunch of other guys, they got together and started promoting this idea. Give a free Gemara, come join the shiur, you'll enjoy it, free Gemara, and that's how it took off. And Baruch Hashem, I believe we gave out close to 1,800 Gemaras.
Wow.
We gave out over 1,000 art scrolls and then different other Gemaras as well. But it was a tremendous push, and we're getting tremendous feedback.
And these are people who committed to join Daf Yomi.
So you have to commit. You have to watch 2-3 shiurim. I don't know exactly the amount, but you watch the shiur, and if you don't like it, you move on. You like it, you continue. And Baruch Hashem, we're 30 days after that promotion, most of these people are still on. So it's amazing. We're seeing tremendous jump in numbers.
But it's unbelievable. Your shiur has experienced, I would say, since the Siyam Hashas, an unbelievable growth. Both in the people who are watching you now live and those who listen to your recordings. I don't know if you remember, I didn't speak to you about this before we did started the interview.
Yeah.
I spoke to you a couple of years ago, before you were so famous.
Remember.
Do you remember?
Okay.
I reached out to you before the Siyam Hashas. I was putting out the magazine for the Siyam Hashas. The Aguda asked me to do it. And I reached out to you at the time because I came across your 8-minute Chazara.
That was you.
That was me.
Oh, okay.
And we didn't even make that connection. You remember?
Yeah.
And we had an article, and anyway, so at the time, you weren't as famous as you are now. I guess a lot of promotion and advertising helped, and also the tremendous increased interest in Daf Yomi in general has brought many more viewers and listeners to major Magidei shiur, including yourself. And it's amazing for me to watch. I remember when I first contacted you a couple of years ago, till now, how much your popularity has grown, and it's a big schus for you to be able to be Marbitz Torah on a daily basis to so many people. And we'll get into certain signature characteristics of your shiur and things that you do to really pique people's interests and keep them engaged. But before we do that, I'm sure
I want to jump in here because you mentioned there's so the name of that publication is Hasiyum. So I want to tell you a beautiful thing. So we were discussing, I didn't realize it was you. And I was all excited. I remember I was in the safari, I was in the middle of the jungle, and you called me, and I think I was there, pretty sure. And I was like, wow, I'm going to get a free advertisement in this Hasiyum, and it goes out to the 100,000 people in MetLife.
We printed 150,000 copies.
150,000 copies. Unbelievable. Can't get any better. So I was all pumped. Wow, the 8-minute daf is going to take off and everything. And then I spoke to you and you said the publication is way too big and you had to take out all these things. I called my father and I said, okay, listen, I understand if I have a monetary loss, because Baruch Hu has a cheshbon and everything, but how do you explain a Torah loss? Over here I could have gone from, I had 1,000 viewers on the 8-minute daf and I could take it to 10,000. How do I deal with that? And my father told me, he said, whatever that number is supposed to be, that's the number you're going to get. Mm-hmm. It's not going to make a difference. And so, because I wasn't in the publication, I said, we have to do something else. And it turned out to be a big bracha. The numbers, they grew. It was unbelievable. So, I mean, it goes to show that you think it comes from here, but it comes from another place. Because Baruch Hu has his plans.
It is true that we cut out a lot of material because the magazine.
Now you have charata, don't you?
I'm not sure, but apparently you forgave me because you came anyway for the interview. So, but it's
chas v'shalom.
You know,
it's beautiful.
It's nice to see the growth and what you've done. You mentioned
next time, you're going to get me next time?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay,
if I have the stuff to do it,
great.
No question about it. And it is true that you, despite the fact that it didn't make the cut to Hasiyim, you went ahead and you did all these creative types of things to try to draw people in. You mentioned your father. Take us back to your youth. Where did you grow up? We know that you live in Ramat Beit Shemesh now in Eretz Yisrael. You weren't born in Eretz Yisrael, were you?
I was born in Lakewood.
Okay.
And there's not enough time in the interview, but basically we lived in Long Beach in Far Rockaway. I did the Darchei Torah thing. My father's a Rebbe in Shayashuv. Borough Park, Flatbush, Kensington, Eretz Yisrael, a few trips to Eretz Yisrael back and forth. I learned in Yeshiva K'tana in Eretz Yisrael, which is high school in Eretz Yisrael. Then we made our way back to America.
So when you say you learned in Yeshiva K'tana, that's Mesivta in Eretz Yisrael.
Right.
Now I was told, tell me if I'm correct, that you learned by Reb Michal Yehuda Lefkowitz. Is that true?
Absolutely.
One of the Gedolei Hadar.
Right.
What grade, what equivalent grade would that have been?
That's 11th grade. He was the shiur Gimel of Yeshiva K'tana in Panovich.
And that Panovich Yeshiva Latzirim, right?
Latzirim Mitziyanim.
Oh, Mitziyanim.
They put that word.
Okay.
Yeah. And Rabbi Leib Steinman was the parallel shiur. So they gave the two shiurim. I was lucky to have Reb Michal Yehuda. He was.
Did you realize at the time that your Rebbe was one of the Gedolei Hadar?
No. Rabbi Leib Steinman was considered from the Gedolim then. Reb Michal Yehuda Lefkowitz was considered the best Maggid shiur then. He was older and everything, but he wasn't. I mean, he was a Gedolim picture sort of, but people didn't go to ask brachas, that sort of thing. But he was a phenomenal Maggid shiur. It was unbelievable to learn by him.
Would you say that Reb Michal Yehuda formed your Derech Halimut in any way, or was that did that happen
not
elsewhere?
Really. I was younger. I was younger than everybody else. He picked on me a lot. Mil Shir, you go, nu Eli Stefansky, ma pshat batoisves. You know, I was younger and not as good as the rest of the guys in the shir, but it was a great experience.
Even though you were an American kid in an Israeli yeshiva,
right.
You were able to acclimate well?
I picked up Hebrew pretty quickly, and yeah.
And then
it wasn't easy, and I wasn't from the better guys in the shir, but.
And what happened then for Beis Medrash? What happened the next?
I learned in Passaic for 2 years by Meir Stern, and then from there I did something crazy. I went, which is not acceptable really, but it was great for me. I went from Passaic to Chaim Berlin, and then the Mir in Eretz Yisrael. So.
And at that point, would you say that you had a tremendous geschmack in learning? Did you see yourself as a Maggid shiur? What did you view yourself at that point?
So my father is a big masmid. He learns all day and night. He wears talis and tefillin. You know, he's he's from a very young age, 2-3 years old. Whenever I remember, he was always with the Gemara learning all day long. So I looked up to my father and I wanted to learn, but I have a different personality than him. I'm a little bit wilder, and you know, the ADD or whatever it is, and it wasn't. I tried to, you know, I learned in Kailo for 6 years. It just wasn't going.
Where was that? Where did you learn in Kailo?
I learned in Chaim Berlin. I learned in Eretz Yisrael for 3 years in the Mir. It never lasted. You know, I tried and I pushed myself, and I wanted to do this, but I didn't find my niche. You know, it wasn't. At any given opportunity, if there was a ski trip or something, I would book out of there and run, go skiing. So then I realized, hey, maybe this is not for me. So my father wasn't very happy, but left Kailul and went to work.
Doing what?
So in the beginning, I was doing catering, dabbling in real estate a little bit, renovation.
Where were you living at this moment in time?
Moved to Chicago.
Okay.
Moved to Chicago and opened up a catering business, and was doing renovations. I learned how to be an electrician, a plumber. You know, I was doing physical labor the idea was to eventually go into real estate and know the business from the bottom up.
Mm-hmm.
So
Can I ask you a personal question? At that
sure, anything.
at that point in your life, were you committed to any serious Torah learning on a regular basis?
Yes. At that point, I was giving a shiur. I actually did the Daf Yomi cycle as a Magid shiur. So I did 8 years, but the shiur, I don't want to tell anybody, but the shiur only had about 5 to 6 people for 8 years. It was very stagnant.
By the way, most Daf Yomi shiurim amal used to be like that. It's only a recent phenomenon that people have hundreds, thousands, viewers, listeners.
Right. It's a little shul basement, dadas, and my brother-in-law's father came over to me one day and just said, "Hey, Ronnie Shabbat, you want to give us a shiur?" And I was like, "Shiur, okay, fine." Prepared an hour or two. Wasn't, didn't take up the day. Mm-hmm. And so I was, but I really was hoping for more, and learning was always in the back of my mind. But okay, it didn't work out. Maybe one day.
So this is how many years ago are we talking now? That you're giving the shiur, you're running a catering business.
This was at least 15 years ago.
About 15 years ago, okay. And what was the next step in your journey?
So then I grew a successful real estate company, bought a lot of real estate and managed it, and that sort of thing. Had a lot of employees, built a lot of homes.
How did you go from being a caterer to owning a lot of real estate? I imagine
you want to go into that?
There's a transition there.
Well, so I was flipping a lot of homes. I was good at renovations, so I was renovating, buying dilapidated homes and renovating them, flipping them. And it's a long story. I don't know if you want to go into it, but a regel achas, a guy came over to me during one of the weddings. I was running a wedding, and he said, "I have 2,000 units in Indianapolis. Are you interested?" And I said, "How much?" He said, $65 million or something. And I was like, "Pretty crazy, I'm doing a couple, $65 million. I'll see you later." And I just kept on asking people how their chicken is, and and that night I went home and I was like, I rehashed that conversation, and I started talking to myself and like, why not? Why can't you do 2,000 apartments? You could do 100, you could do 200. And I started going through this whole thing, basically thinking out of the box of how I could do 2,000 apartments. And the idea was if I could do 100, it might be difficult, but I could do it, and I could borrow money and get a loan and why don't I just treat the 2,000 as 100? Just pieces, another 100, another 100. And I started working on that. I called up the guy, said, "I'm interested," drove down there with my minivan. The guy looked at him and says, "A guy in a minivan is going to buy this property?" He says, "No, he has other cars, don't worry about it." And so basically I went around to people in shul. "So you interested in 100 units in Indianapolis?" "Sure." "What's your experience?" "I don't really have, but I'm there, And I started selling it off. And I had to quit my catering job. I took a big risk, quit, worked it for 3 months, and Baruch Hashem, it worked out.
So you move into real estate.
Yeah.
And you ended up in Eretz Yisrael at some point. Well, how did that happen?
Okay, so we built a very nice home in Chicago, 12,000 square feet. It had the elevator, it had, I don't remember, it was like 12 bathrooms maybe. Crazy stuff. My wife is an interior designer. She designed every bathroom with different granite and da-da-da. And my guys from my company, they built the house. It was an incredible house. 12-foot ceilings, the whole thing. We moved in, and I started thinking about it. It's like, what are you doing? You have this big giant house. You have all these fancy cars. Successful business. But what do you have to show for up there? How's your bank account doing up there? It's pretty weak. And, rehashing this and like a midlife crisis kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Pushing 40, and I have nothing to show for it. If I died today, so I have all the stuff, I'm not going to benefit from it. So I need to start investing in my bank account up there. Spoke to my wife. My wife said, I said something about Israel. She said Israel. I don't remember. And I said, okay, let me check it out. And I came downstairs like an hour or so later. I said, I bought tickets. I'm going to Israel. She said, what? Yeah, I'm going to Israel. I got to check it out. Okay, see you later. Came back a few days later. I said, I was in Ramat Bet Shemesh. And I like it. It's cool. I saw Simcha Sussman throwing a ball with his son. The guy's with the beard, the tzitz is hanging out, but he's playing ball with his kid. It's like well-rounded people. It's a great place. Only to find out later, Simcha told me, he's never played with his son before and never after. Anyway, so a couple of weeks after that, we were on a plane. We moved to Eretz Yisrael. Left everything behind. We came with 12 suitcases to Eretz Yisrael. Most of our stuff is still in Chicago now.
Really?
Yeah. Never
And
made Aliyah.
I'm just curious, you felt that whatever Ruchnius growth you were seeking, you couldn't tap into that in Chicago? You had to move to Eretz Yisrael for that?
You know, Chicago is a great place, but I felt that I was in some sort of race almost, like building another house, this friend is building a house, and this friend is driving that car. Eretz Yisrael, when it comes to these things, everybody lives in an apartment building. Not everybody, but 95%, you know. We live in an apartment building today on the 4th floor in an apartment that can fit into one bedroom in our house that we had in Chicago. And that's how people live. Nobody's showing off, oh, my apartment is better than your apartment. It's just nobody cares. You know, we're talking about Nachman Seltzer. Nachman Seltzer came over to me when I first moved there and he says, you know, Eli, I got to tell you, this Camry that you bought, and it was a 10-year-old Camry, he says, it doesn't pass here in this neighborhood. It's too fancy. What are you doing?
Really?
He was serious. I was shocked. I said, what? I left my Lexus. I had the newest and the top model. I left it in Eretz Yisrael. I could have brought it here for $2,000. And you're making fun of me driving a Camry that every Kyle guy in America drives? He says, it's not the way to do it here. So I said, okay, fine. So I went and I bought my Lexus in Eretz Yisrael. You're going to make fun of my Camry.
Might as well drive a nicer car.
Exactly. But anyway, but he's right. In the neighborhood, people are not driving, you know, nice cars. It's just not a thing. Corolla, this, old. So the focus is a little different over there. I'm not saying it's perfect and every place has its chitzronos, but in terms of learning, like the way the shiur grew. So these guys from the neighborhood, they came over to me, like I was doing this synopsis, 8-minute, I was doing all 7 daf in 45 minutes on a Thursday night. And the guy said, hey, why don't you start a shiur? So I said, okay. But who shows up to the shiur? Tamid Chachamim, guys that knew how to learn, good learners. Sat around. The first day we had 7 guys, more than I had in Chicago. And then the second day was 10, and it grew very quickly. You know, people are thirsty for learning.
And this was how long after you moved to Eretz Yisrael?
Probably 3-4 years.
Now, just before we move on,
Yeah.
I'm intrigued to learn, how did your wife deal with the move, the adjustment, cultural differences, and so on, and your children? How did it impact
That's
them?
a very good question. She's not adjusted yet. In her mind, we just had to buy a house in Chicago to pacify that, you know. She wants to feel like she has something in America. We never made Aliyah yet. We're there for 8 years. And she thinks she's coming back one day, you know, and we might. But right now we take it one day at a time, and it's very, very difficult. Her whole family's in Chicago. She has one brother, Rosh Shiva, Netziv Saharan, Moshe Friedman in Yerushalayim, so she has one brother. She has cousins, but you know, her parents are in Eretz Yisrael, are in Chicago. Her sister-in-law, her brother, you know, so they're mainly over there.
So it's an adjustment. And your children, chinuch and those type of things.
Yeah, some did better than others. They picked up the language, and the ones that we thought would have the hardest time, they have the best time. They all miss America. They, you know.
You come back from time to time.
We come back every summer for a few weeks, and every Pesach we're back. Besides during COVID, but yeah.
So you're there. You start a shiur, and at that point, it's bigger than what it was in America, but it wasn't what it is today.
No.
So what happened in the interim?
What happened was that I decided to start. If we're going to start a shiur, I might as well use some of my business experience with the shiur. So I came up with different ideas. And I have to say that one of the biggest nisim is that the guys in the shiur, till this very day, so many of them are such a big part of it. The original guys, they all have full-time jobs, but they give over hours every single day. So it's a team effort. And they all bought into it from day one. They saw the potential and so I would come with charts, I would come with pictures, try to make it interesting, good coffee. I figured, the guys need to have a coffee. So we went and bought a nice coffee machine. Anything to make learning more fun, more exciting.
And you were giving the shiur the same time every day?
Every day. Until this day we do it the same
in the morning,
time. 7:15
in the morning.
Yeah.
And you were giving a full-length shiur?
Right.
Plus your 8-minute chazara?
Plus the 8-minute chazara.
And the 8-minute chazara you were doing privately, recording, and then releasing that?
Correct.
Right.
And editing. I would edit the 8-minute, and I would do it in Hebrew also.
And we should mention a lot of the posters and pictures that you use, which you became famous for, are diagrams and charts that you yourself made. I know you didn't bring any of the paraphernalia with you today, but anyone who has ever seen your shiur has seen how you really...
I'm not very artistic, but I try. I use Word document and I put some lines together, whatever. Anything to make, or if there's a funny picture I find on Google that has to do with the daf, or anything interesting that will wake the guys up in middle shiur. Something will say, whoa, why did you bring that picture? Oh, interesting. Giggle a little bit, and we go weiter. Good morning, Rabbi Sai. Today's shiur is sponsored by Gedalia Palak in honor of our. I got to show you what they ate in those days. It's gewaldike, unbelievable stuff. I don't want to ever forget this kutach. It's big stuff. It's very, very chashuv stuff. And we talk about it a lot in Shas. We're only going to do this once. I kept milk for over 6 months to get it to the right consistency. This is sour, should be sour. I also have a piece of bread. That's mamish mold, should be mold. Unbelievable mold. And now we're going to take... it's nerve. We're going to do this... It's nerve, the smell. Rabbi say, it's nerve. Let me... Rashi brings here, in Avos it says, Da'ataft atfuch, that the skull was floating, so it's a little bit, not too much.
At what point did you feel that the shiur took the leap to the next level, where it's, wow, this is something bigger than I ever envisioned?
We prepared a lot for brachas. We knew that at the beginning of Shas, a lot of guys are going to come on, and we wanted to be ready for that. So a year before, we already started going into preparations for brachas Daf Beis. One of the things we did is we built a building just for the Daf Yomi. It's called Merkaz Daf Yomi. It's a large room with TV screens and good coffee and different machines and stuff. It's like a man cave for Torah. So,
but it has regular minyanim all the time, or is it just for the shiur?
It's all based around the shiur. The minyan shachris before the shiur, minyan shachris after the shiur, and eventually we have a koilel, MDY koilel, which is going to move in there. We can't use it right now. We gave it to yeshiva, but as soon as they move out, we're moving in. There's a shiur at night. It's all about Daf Yomi. We have the Artscroll shasim right in the front because we didn't have room for bookcases. The bookcases are next to the Aron Kodesh. So you have Aron Kodesh, Artscroll shas on this side, Artscroll shas on that side, or the Artscroll svarim.
Now, you moved to Eretz Yisrael, you're basically giving a shiur. What happened to your real estate business? What happened to Parnasa? I'm sure people are curious to know what's the secret to doing that.
Well, I used to fly into America every month for 3-4 days at a time. And as I got more involved in the daf, it became less frequent. It was every 2 months, then every 3 months. And Baruch Hashem, I have a great partner, Benzi Friedman, not my brother-in-law, but he's a guy from Chicago with the same name. And he does a phenomenal job. And I've bitachon in Hashem. I really believe that the less I mix into my business, the better off the business is. But it took time to build up. It was an hour a day, 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day. I was learning 4, built it up until the point where there's hardly any time for the business. I'm on top of it somewhat. I speak to him. I try to speak to him once a day for a few minutes just to see what's going on. But he runs the business.
Now, I'm going to play the role of cynic for a second.
Sure.
During many of your shiurim that I've heard, you
actually watch,
listen.
Really?
Yes. I listen on a daily basis. I listen to Reb Surly Bornstein shiur. I'm a member of that chabura, but
I love him. He's a great guy.
Reb Surly's phenomenal, but you got to learn the daf several times. So we get a taste of MDY.
Is he going to be here also?
We'll see. Maybe if he sees you're here, Reb Surly knows he's invited. So, but Baruch Hashem, each shiur, like Reb Surly's, yours, and so many others, each have their own flavor, and are accomplishing the ultimate goal of getting people to learn more. That's
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, which actually is a perfect segue to what I wanted to ask you. You, on your shiur, unabashedly, almost plead with people to learn more. You tell people to learn more. You encourage them in a phenomenally positive way. But the cynic will say, Rebelli, it's very nice for you to say that. You have a successful business. Baruch Hashem, Parnasa is there. It's very easy for you to tell people spend more time on learning and less time on business. Meanwhile, many of the people watching you and listening to you are thinking to themselves, are you serious? I'm barely making ends meet. I'm trying my hardest. And I just don't have more time in my day. So what would you say to that cynic who says, Rebelli, who are you to preach to us to learn more? In your matziv, it comes easier.
It's a great question. So let me ask you, during COVID, we were all locked in our homes. People weren't going to work. What were they doing? They were sitting at home. What were they doing? They were learning. They don't have where to go. On vacation. Ben Izmanim. What are they doing? They're not busy with Parnasa, but they're not learning. Why not? Here's the situation. You're like Eli Stefansky, so to speak. He doesn't have to earn a living. So why are you learning? But the point is, really, you don't have to learn all day. Everybody has those 45 minutes in the day that they could sacrifice, so to speak. They could dedicate it to Torah. Why not? Another 45 minutes. You don't have 45 minutes. Anybody that's that busy with Parnasa that doesn't have 45 minutes, there's something wrong. That means they don't really believe. If you think you have to work 15, 16 hours a day, then you don't have it right. You have to work. I'm not saying you shouldn't work. You have to earn a Parnasa. But there must be a time in the day. It's better if you do it before you go to work. If you can't, do it after, but there has to be 45 minutes. But yeah, people tell me that. So that same guy that tells it to me, I'm looking at him. I said, you weren't at work for a year. You didn't go to work. You're taking a check from the government. So did you sit down and open up a Gemara once during that whole year during COVID? So it's easy to. It reminds me of a mice. The Chavetz Chaim. A guy came to, I think it was the Chavetz Chaim. Somebody came to the Chavetz Chaim and said, "I'm a water carrier." It's not fair. These guys are in Kail. They earn as much as I do. They're sitting and learning. So the Chavetz Chaim says, "What do you know? What could you do? What could you learn?" No. So I could read. He says, "Okay, here, take it to Hillim and read." So he went to the Beis Medrash and he started reading, and after an hour he got sick and tired of it. He said, "I'm done. I want to do my water carrying." But listen, the point is not the whole day. Another half hour, another 40 minutes, another hour and a half. Take it slowly. There's always time in the day. Always, you could always, instead of watching those YouTube videos, whatever it is, or these interviews, learn Torah.
100%. Now, as far as your preparation, how long does it take you to prepare for an average shiur?
All day.
Really? So it's constantly on your mind. The next day's daf, constantly.
I get up somewhere in the 3 area, because I give a shiur at 7:15. So before 4 o'clock, I'm up, and I go to sleep at 1. All day I'm doing the daf. But I sleep in the afternoon. I take a quick nap.
And that carries you through that.
Yeah.
And chasanas, commitments, other events? Do you just cut those out of your life because you're committed to the daf?
Yeah, a lot of it is unfortunately not there. I don't vacation anymore like I'm supposed to. Restaurants with the wife, a lot. There's the sacrifice because there are a lot of people relying on it, and it takes me. I'm not that good, so it takes me a lot of hours to prepare.
When you say you're not that good, what do you mean that? Besides for being
I don't
humble.
I don't. I'm who I am, and I'm not the biggest balkishrin in the world. I'm not the biggest learner in the world. I'm a balabas. At the end of the day, I'm a balabas. I'm a real estate guy. I just decided I want to do this. So for a real estate guy without a lot of background, and I wasn't the best guy in yeshiva. I wasn't the top learner, that sort of thing. So it takes a lot of time and preparation.
So in preparing, you open up the Gemara. You've done the Daf Yomi cycle in the past. Do you have recollections? Do you feel like you're preparing from scratch? Take us through that process. 3:00 in the morning. What's the
well, 3:00 in the morning is already chazar.
Oh, that's chazar.
So yeah, no. By 3:00, I'm basically prepared. It's the final steps. My memory is terrible. I believe it's bad. So most of the time when I open up the daf, it's brand new. I mean, there's a lot of sugis and a lot of ideas that we have through through Shas that come up over and over. So I'm familiar with those, but just the daf, the way it is now, so I learn it by myself. I have a phenomenal chavrusa, Rabbi Yedida Kramer, who knows Kol HaTorah Kula, is a tremendous balkishrin. I go over it with him afterwards for about an hour, and then I'm on my own for the rest of the day.
Does Artscroll play any role in the preparation?
It actually does.
Hebrew,
yes.
English, both?
English. I have a few Artscroll shasim. I own two. I should say a couple. I have two shasim. And I use the Artscroll every day. Every day. First of all, I need some translations in the words, just because the shiur is in English, and because I grew up in Artscroll for a bunch of years, the good years, my English is not the best. So I go to the Artscroll. I love looking through the notes. So I'm not just saying it because I'm here in Artscroll. I know it's a busha, the Artscroll, the Magid Shir looks in the Artscroll. I look in the Artscroll. I'm
sure that many of the participants also do. And
many actually come with the iPad. They're looking at the digital, the digital Artscroll.
Yeah. I was just speaking to Rabbi Cheskel Danziger, who works here. He's the editorial director of the Shanstein Talmud. And he mentioned to me that Daf Yomi and Artscroll, the Artscroll Gemara, the Shanstein Talmud, have a symbiotic relationship. The Daf Yomi benefits from Shanstein Gemara, and the Shanstein Gemara benefits from Daf Yomi. It goes both ways. And both of them have grown kind of together. It's really an incredible thing to watch.
Artscroll took it to the next level, there's no question. I mean, Rameir Shapiro brought the idea out, and Artscroll, I believe, just took it to a whole nother level, brought it to the masses. Yeah. It's unbelievable. It's a schus that's unimaginable.
What would you attribute the growth of Daf Yomi shiurim specifically, like these chabura shiurim, over the last 2 years? What do you think that's attributed to? Is it the technology? Is it the fact that someone mentioned me the other day that it was all due to Corona because people were using Zoom more? What do you think it is?
It's a combination. I mean, before COVID, the beginning of Shas was crazy. We built a base measure for 80 people. We had about 100 and something people per shiur. People were standing. People were excited. People are excited about learning. They are, and if you give them the right formula, and it's geschmack, it's understandable, and it's easily accessible, they just go on their phone as they're driving. They're watching the shiur. They put it down on the dashboard. I don't know how much they're watching. It depends if you're a New York driver or not. But they're watching, they're listening. Today it's on everything. You have the podcast and YouTube. And if you don't hold of YouTube, you have Torah Anytime and Kol Shon and websites and apps. Everybody has apps today. It's unbelievable.
When I log onto your shiur, I'm always amazed. 12:15 in the morning hour time, when the time discrepancy is 7 hours. And I scroll through on Zoom and I see the number of people from different time zones. So in Eretz Yisrael at 7:15 in the morning, but you have people 12:15 at night. It's a kviyas that they're logging on. They want to watch it live because it's a special experience. It's very interesting to see.
We have almost 100 people logging in 12:15 New York time from New York.
Right.
It's unbelievable that they'll stay up 12:15 a.m.
till about 1 o'clock or so.
1 o'clock or so.
Yeah. If you had to make a 60-second elevator pitch for your shiur, people are watching, you want them to join your shiur, what would it be? What's the overriding
Without
factor?
thinking, you don't give me any.
I'll give you a little time.
No, it's okay.
I'm sure this is something that you think about because
I've done it a few times. It's always different. It depends on the person. But the idea is, first of all, the daf and Torah benefits you. You, by learning the daf, become a better person. So that's number one. You become a better person, a better husband, a better father, a better business person. And you feel good about yourself. That's the main thing. You feel good about yourself. And you're doing Ratzon Hashem. It's the best way to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And there's really, I believe every single person I bump into really wants to learn. At the end of the day, they want to learn Torah. They just feel they're not, first of all, a lot of yeshiva guys, we learned in yeshivas and all the lumdas, and we're pounding lumdas for so many years. And some people are like, well, I'm going to learn Daf Yomi, it's Zion, Daf Yomi is for Balabatim, but for the Amaratzim.
By the way, I think that may have been the prevailing notion at one point. It's not that way anymore.
But nevertheless, you have the real yeshiva guys, they're still looking for that lumdus, for the raid, for the this, for the that. And I need a chavrusa, I need a this. I'm gonna learn Daf Yomi with the guy with charts. Come on. But at the end of the day, Torah is here, and everybody wants to learn Torah, and it's fun. It's geschmack. It's a family. I mean, I don't know about the other shiurim, but our shiur is literally a family. People are there for each other. They look out for each other. They know each other on a first-name basis. People go to different cities, countries. They pick each other up from the airport. They get together. They go out together. It's a mishpacha. It's really mishpacha.
I know when you've been going now in your time in America, you've been going city to city and giving shiurim in Chicago and the 5 towns. And I know you've received a tremendous reception from so many of the people who listen to your shiur. What's that been like?
It's incredible. I went to, they asked me if I could come to Miami, and I said, okay, fine, when? Tomorrow. Okay, tomorrow. So they put up a WhatsApp, I'm going to be in Miami. Couldn't believe it. 80 people showed up. 80 people from Miami, all walks of life and this and that. Eli, People asked me to sign their Artscroll Gemaras. I had to autograph their Gemaras. It was funny. 5 towns, again, without a lot of notice, 1 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon, over 100 people showed up. Wow. So, people are into it. They feel that's changing their lives for the better. And
So you're saying besides for the learning part of it that uplifts them, but they feel like they're connecting and they belong to something.
Yeah.
That's an important part of it.
100%. They feel they belong. The camaraderie, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable camaraderie.
Going back to your shiur for a second, when you prepare, how do you decide what you include in your shiur? There's Gemara Rashi, there's Taisis, the Rishonim. I see you're selective about what sometimes you'll throw in a tidbit. How do you decide what you want to include? Do you have a mahalach as far as going through?
It's a style. If something is boring, so to speak, even if it's important, I probably won't even say it. There's machlokes from this, yes or no. If there's something exciting, something that will, people say, what? That's what I like to say. Something shocking, something interesting, something that's negel ma'isa, something that you can bring home to the family, we're learning Pesachim, Pesach, the Seder night. Did you know you have to do a seva only like this, not like that? People just, go like this. But there's a certain way, your head has to be propped. Certain things that you can bring to Sukkah, to whatever it is, Yantif. So any kind of chiddush like that, I'm very big into. And anytime I could stick in a shtickle musar, a little, not musar like that, but hashkafa, something that you could take home and be a better person.
Is there a particular Maggid shiur who you've heard or seen who you say, wow, there's an aspect of his delivery or his content that I'm going to try to incorporate, or someone who you model yourself after?
I don't model myself after because I'm very unique and different and weird. But I did listen to Sruli Bornstein shiurim. I do, I don't listen as much as I would like to. I don't have the time, but if I had the time, I would listen to him. It's a very different style, but he has some very good raid there.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's one. Who else? Doesn't come to mind really, anybody,
Mm-hmm.
but there are a lot of talented people out there, a lot of very good Maggid shiurim.
Do you feel intimidated that you're the Maggid shiur? You're sitting in a room. You mentioned many Talmid Chachamim around the table, and here you are, kind of under the spotlight. You ever feel intimidated?
When my chavrusa comes to my shiur, I'm very intimidated. I don't get out. If my father came, but yeah, I mean, you get used to it after a while. But I have what to be intimidated by.
Mm-hmm.
I make mistakes all the time.
I was going to ask you. You ever get stuck in the middle of a Gemara? You don't have pshat, or someone asks you a kasha, and kind of stumps you?
I just had in Chicago, one of the first times. It's unbelievable. An 11-year-old kid asked me a question. I didn't have an answer.
Wow.
Worse than that. But no, I take it in stride. I said, Givaldik, unbelievable. Look at these Chicagoans. It's tremendous. This kid Abi asked me a kasha, and then they told me, Darchen Lener asks a good kasha. But it happens. Worse than that is when you literally say the wrong pshat in the Gemara. You make a mistake of a 2-year-old. It happens. One day I was saying a shiur. This is going way back, like 3 years ago. And in the middle of the shiur, I said something like a chicken was pregnant or something. Like, Mom, or something completely didn't make any sense. Like it happens. Things happen.
You let it roll. You got to let it roll.
You laugh. You make fun of yourself. That's part of the thing. I'm big into making fun of myself during shiur.
So speaking of a little milsa, the bedichas that you have, at the beginning of your shiur, you started at some point reading emails. You make a light comment, a joke. What possessed you to do that? Because that also became part of your signature style. And I should mention, I sent you an email a few weeks ago. Before I know it, I'm getting messages from people. Reb Eli, I said, yeah, I saw it live when you read my email on air, or our friend Reb Aryeh Morrison here at Artscroll. You pulled up his picture, and everyone here had a good time with that. But you do a lot of these creative types of things totally out of the box.
Right.
But obviously it's part of what makes that kind of that camaraderie, that feeling of a family.
Exactly.
Not so formal.
Well, it started, in the beginning of Bracha, somebody sent an email. So I took the email, I said, it would be very interesting if every shiur I could read one of these. But nobody's sending emails. So I read it, and I kind of alluded to the fact that there are more, and that, send in more, and Baruch Hashem, it took off. There's a day or two that we didn't have, but from that point on, today we're getting 30, 40 emails a day.
Wow.
And just yesterday, 2 days ago, I read 3 incredible emails. One of them literally made me cry. I had tears coming out of my eyes. Just crazy stories. A guy is in the ICU, and he's isolated from his family, he almost died, and he's just with the Gemara. The Gemara is keeping him alive. And a guy that's not religious, with the Artscroll Gemara. A guy that's not religious, I just read this 2 days ago maybe. He got an Artscroll Gemara, and he's a funny guy. He's in Los Angeles, and it's bringing him back to Yiddishkeit. And he says that every night he would take some sort of thing that's legal in Los Angeles to cut the edge off, but now he doesn't have to take anything. He just learns from the Artscroll.
Wow.
I'm serious. The vart of the emails, first of all, to loosen everybody up. It loosens me up. Start off with a milsa de b'dichusa, and sometimes it's inspiring, sometimes it's funny, sometimes it makes fun of me. It's good stuff.
Yeah,
but also,
you don't mind being self-deprecating.
No, not at all. It's all part of its geschmack. But we get to know the different people. There's a Mendel Mitz from Buenos Aires that writes in. There's a guy from the Los Angeles, Harry Shalom, and then the Chassid from Williamsburg, and it's just, and people start recognizing these names. Mm-hmm. So it brings the mishpacha together. It's.
What's the hardest Gemara that you've ever learned? What's the most challenging Gemara that you've encountered?
I don't know, but I do know. I can't recall offhand. I do know that on at least 2 occasions, right before I went to sleep, I said, I don't know this Gemara well enough to give a shiur. And I stayed up the whole night. Just the whole night, just seeing if I could get it a little easier, a little bit better. And it was very satisfying. After the shiur, somebody said, wow, you said it was a hard Gemara. It was so easy. I'm like, okay.
If you would have only known what it took.
Right.
Do you ever get nervous before you give the shiur?
Every shiur before I go, there's a little bit of, not anxiety, of
apprehensive?
Yeah, maybe like, I hope this goes well today. And, there's only 5,000 people watching and I got to make sure it's good.
It's one thing if
I'm a perfectionist, so it needs to be...
Right. I was going to say, it's one thing if you're recording it privately. You could edit it, you could redo it.
There's no editing.
But,
there is a little bit of editing afterwards. But we don't take out words and that sort of... The editor puts in pictures and stuff like that.
So you have other people do that, or you do that yourself?
We have an incredible team. No, I don't do the editing. We have a guy, Yosef Bilyak, who sits there and does editing, and he does the editing on the 8-minute video. Well, it's like there's a bunch of... I have a guy, Gary Ben Moshe. He sits there every single day. He doesn't get paid. He has another full-time job. Every day, at least 2 hours, he puts into the shiur, just the tech stuff. He sits in a booth above the shiur, manning the cameras and the this, and the YouTube and the Zoom and feeding it in. You know how it works, these things.
Sure.
There's the whole 6 screens and different things. It's one guy after another.
You ever have a day where you wake up and you're just not motivated? You don't have that motivation. You're not interested. It's not going. And Daf Yomi, you don't have a choice to take a day off.
Baruch Hashem, I didn't have a day that I'm not motivated, but there are days that are very, very difficult. My son got married. I had to do the daf before the chasana, after the chasana, during the Shever Brachas, on vacation. You can't just say, okay, I'm relaxed. There's no relaxation. You have to try to get the same quality shiur out every single day, 365 days a year.
Any final message to our viewers? Encourage them to join the 8-minute daf, to learn more. Chizuk for people who are going through tough times, that even so they're able to spend a quality amount of time
Literally just
learning.
yesterday I read an email. A guy was suicidal, depression, got divorced, got divorced, decided to leave Yiddishkeit. He became suicidal, and then he found the daf, and Ma'aser Shaya, this is what he writes. He writes that the daf saved his life. He's no longer suicidal. He doesn't have these thoughts. He feels like a new person. He doesn't know how long it'll last, but he's been doing this for a month. And the daf will change a person's life. And all you need to do is try it out once. Try it out once. Eli Stefansky on Torah Anytime, Eli Stefansky on YouTube, whatever. Try it out once.
Well, thank you, Rebelli, for coming in. Thank you for giving us of your
Absolutely.
time. Just my humble bracha. You should continue to inspire people by what you do, how you do it, with the geschmack that you bring every day, and continue to hatzlacha in your habatzah.
Thank you very much.